Ladies and gentlemen, how is everybody doing? My name is JP Awad of Bovida, and next to me is Nate Beck. We are stoked to be here, and this is going to be a really fun episode of Unboxed Live. We are here today with Aaron Sigmond. He is an award-winning publisher and author of up to 5 books at this point, and creative executive who has traversed the world of cigars both personally and professionally for more than 30 years. His entry into the cigar industry came in 1991 as part of the management team of the Beverly Hills Davidoff of Geneva. From there, he would create Smoke Magazine, as well as the Cigar Report, among many other awesome accomplishments and forays. And we are here today, in particular, to chat with Sig. Aaron does go by Sig, about his brand new book, Cigars, a Biography. Sig, thank you for being with us. We are absolutely stoked that you are with us. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you, Nate and JP, for having me on the show. I appreciate it. Really, really do. Nate, are you entering the David Letterman lookalike contest? Is this a thing? It's a specific good look if you can pull it off.
Oh man, have you ever heard that one before? Has anybody
a couple of times?
Okay,
yeah,
a
couple of times.
Oh yeah, no, he's definitely rocking it. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing your time with me today. I really do. By the way, not that anyone's counting, 23 books, 5 on cigars.
Gotcha.
Okay.
You said I wrote 5.
Corrected. 23 books, 5 on cigars. That is incredibly
awesome.
Impressive, dude. That's really
It's a
cool.
lot. It's a lot of books.
You obviously love it, man. So, okay,
Or I just need the money. One of the something. Obviously, something's perpetuating me for sure.
Oh man, It could be a little column A and B, can't it? All right. So, I want to start kind of at the beginning, right? What sparked your fascination with cigars?
Well, I think like most people, to be honest with you, I started being interested in cigars because my dad did. My dad smoked cigars. He wasn't what you would call a regular cigar smoker. I would call him a social cigar smoker. So anniversaries, parties, New Year's, he owned a lot of convertibles. So, if it was summer and it was nice out, he'd light up. He used to smoke Dunhill Monte Cruz, which was actually the first commercially sun-grown wrapper cigar, then made in the Canary Islands, which means I'm old. So, Dad did, and it was interesting what all the kids in that family took away. My one sister took away port. My dad was a big port drinker. I don't particularly like port, but he was also a big wine collector, and I definitely am very into wines. And he was a cigar guy, and I was always fascinated by the cigars and the rituals. Cigarettes didn't really speak to me at all, and all my aunties and grandma and my mom, they all were smoking their Marlboros or Virginia Slims or whatever they were doing, and that just had no interest. But there was a real sophistication with cigars, and it fascinated me, and there was great ritual. And I've written about this a whole lot. I apologize. I'm going to drink. Usually I don't. Throughout these, I have a little allergy thing, and so my throat keeps on going in and out.
No problem.
No problem, man.
So, most people think I was born and raised in New York, while my father was, and my wife and my daughter. I was not. I grew up in Los Angeles, and we used to do these father-son rituals, as all fathers and sons typically do. And we would go from the San Fernando Valley, where we lived, over the hill to Beverly Hills. We would go to a barbershop there, get our haircut. He would walk into the Dunhill store, of which there were a couple over the years. It moved locations, just kind of up and down the same block. And we would walk in the humidor there. And I loved the aroma. I loved everything about it. He had a regular salesperson, sales guy, knew my dad. And I just fell in love with all of it. Now, I could never have imagined as a little boy that X number of years later, I would be running the Davidoff store on Rodeo Drive. So that was not a logical leap for me, but I just loved everything about it. And, back then, Macanudos were made in Jamaica with Jamaican tobacco. The Monte Cruz was made in the Canary Islands. And so it was a very different time. It was a very interesting time, really before things started to blossom within the Dominican Republic. You could still get some Cubans here and there, and especially in LA and Hollywood. And that's just kind of all it started, I suppose.
That's awesome, man. That's really, really cool. Okay, so
by the way, the camera just zoomed in on me, and that's why I paused for a second, because it scared the shit out of me. I was like, what is going on here? It's like a lot of me. It's a lot of me in that.
Oh man. All right, man. So that being said, this is a perfect segue. How has
I'll be the judge.
Okay. How has your career led you to this moment, writing this book?
Well, it's no secret that I slept my way to the top, and I feel very, very good about that. In some ways, it depends on how you look at it. In some ways, it was a completely linear journey, and in some ways, it wasn't whatsoever. I was on my junior high school newspaper. I was on my high school newspaper. I was on my university paper, and I started writing freelance for magazines like the year I got out of college. So the writing part, relatively speaking, is very linear. It's no secret that I started the second glossy cigar magazine ever, Smoke Magazine. I created that, went into partnership with the Lockwood brothers, and came out with that. And it was great for the time. 90s cigar boom. It was very sexy, very exciting time to be in the cigar world. But then I kind of moved around. I stayed in media, particularly publishing. So that contributes to the books later, but it's men's lifestyle. Worked for Playboy, worked for Esquire, worked for all these different publications. And then I took jobs in the cigar trade. And then I took executive positions within wine and spirits companies. And then that brought me full circle back to media when I started my second cigar periodical. Very, very small, wasn't out for very long, called the Cigar Report. And it would have been out longer, except for the fact that a little thing called the 2008-2009 financial crisis happened. Yeah. And that was the death knell for a lot of media. Specifically, that was kind of the last real part of like magazine publishing, especially here in New York. Digital was already taking over, and that was the end of print in a lot of different ways. And because of that, I actually called up a friend of mine, Chris Napolitano, who was then editorial director of Playboy. And I said, look, I've just been locked out of my offices because apparently my business partners didn't pay the rent for the last like 6 or 9 months, and we're being kicked out. Can I have my old office back at Playboy? He's like, I'll do better than that. So they gave me an office. They gave me an assistant. And through all that, and they gave me some assignments so I could earn some bread. Yeah. But through all that came the Playboy Book of Cigars. Now, the Playboy Book of Cigars was my first book ever, and it was my first cigar book. So it's a 2-in-1. So I wouldn't call it, the writing has always been consistent. I've always been a writer, reader, historian. That's always been there. But sometimes I was in-house, sometimes I was out-of-house, sometimes I owned or ran magazines, sometimes I worked for others, sometimes I took an executive position. A lot of people don't know that I was the creative director of General Cigar for a couple of years. Wasn't doing any writing then, although that's not so, because we did a little in-house book thing at one point. But so cigars were always there in my personal sphere, in the little Sig sphere. And writing was always there in one way or the other. And so that led us to being almost a full-time author.
Yeah. Really cool.
So speaking of cigars,
yes.
What are you currently smoking?
This is a new cigar, actually, both new as in not particularly aged and new in just out. This is a Klaus and Heike Kellner blend called Rare Finds 61011, and this is exclusively for Tobacconists of Greenwich. So if you don't know anything about the Rare Finds line, and I'm a huge fan of it, it's a fascinating, ongoing collaborative process. Are you guys there? You seem a little frozen. Maybe you're not there.
Wow, we just had a major crash here, everybody. We are
Yeah.
sorry that
So
just
sorry
happened.
about that.
Out of the blue, it just crashed, and we all looked at each other like, "Oh shit!"
Yep.
Fuck, are we allowed to say shit?
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.
You can
shit
say
you
whatever you want.
Did you guys hear me? Or no?
We
No.
got to right about, you were talking about a new cigar and then boom, gone.
Boom. So there is a store not too far away, and Mike, great guy who owns it, Tobacconist of Greenwich.
Yeah,
and he
right.
started this ongoing collaboration with different cigar makers. The very first cigar that he did was with Klaus and Henke Kellner, and the whole line is called Rare Finds, but each one is an individual release. So I love the original Kellner Tobacconist of Greenwich Rare Finds, which is a Toro. This is their new Diademas. It just came out like 2 weeks ago. It's a lot mellower, lot softer blend. Wrapper, I don't know if you can see that. The amount of oil on that, it's just, it's crazy.
That's
It's a beautiful stick. Anyway, so I'm smoking one of those. But Mike's done some great projects. He did a project with Eladio Diaz. He did one with Carlito. It was like a double branded special opus. And I know he has other ones coming down the pipeline, but it's very exciting. It's just an amazing collaboration, the likes of which, to be honest with you, I've never really seen another retail. There are people who have white label and private label cigars made just for their store. This isn't that. This is really an ongoing series of collaborations of a genuine line of cigars, just like any other luxury collab. So it's a fascinating project, but I love Mike. He's a great guy. Been very supportive of this book in particular. And I love the cigars, so I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I was fortunate to be able to stop at Tobacconist of Greenwich and have that Kellner cigar, Rare Finds.
The OG or the Diademas?
I had the OG. Yeah, I was there. It was actually when I saw you, Sig. Yeah,
great stick.
Fantastic cigar. Fantastic cigar. The branding on it, the band, everything about the construction, the flavor, everything. I mean,
I remember you raving about it.
Oh, dude, yeah, incredible cigar.
So this is the latest, and Mike always tries to do 2 releases a year. So I don't think I'm allowed to. I know what the other releases are, but I don't. I think he'll fucking kill me if I say anything. So we're stopping at this. This is what's out now, and it just came. Not only did the same night that this launched, Mike did a special edition of the book that we're kind of here to talk about, Cigars of Biography, and he did a private edition of that book. So he has his own kind of version of it. It's got a different slipcase and a different cover. Yeah,
is it a purple one? Yeah, awesome, man.
Yeah, burgundy. It's like a deep, rich burgundy.
Love it. Really cool.
We're going to call burgundy.
JP and I thought this would be fitting, considering one of your books is actually about the Fuente family.
2 books.
These are 2 books, yes. These are Casa Fuente Lanceros that I've been sitting on for over a year. I forgot that I had them in the humidor.
That would be 2 years.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I got to remember to smoke these. And I thought, what a better time to smoke them than right now.
Yeah, buddy.
Well, I appreciate that. I know Cyril and Carlito and Cynthia and all the guys there and girls will as well. But more importantly, that's a real unicorn. That's a serious stick. Good for you guys.
Delicious.
I felt I love getting to know and becoming friends with our retailers, our customers, and spending time in their shops. And I'd spent enough time with
Robert
Michael Feyerberger at Casa Fuente. And the time I had one of these, we were with our good friend Dallas Edmiston. I don't know if you know Dallas. And Dallas is like, Michael, can we get a couple of the Casa Fuente Lanceros? And he goes, I don't have any. And he goes, go get them. And so he walked in the humidor and came back out with a couple. That was the first time I had one.
It's funny.
And so I sort of bided my time, didn't push it. And then 2 years ago, I said, hey, Michael, do you think JP and I could get, like maybe 4 of the Lanceros? And he goes, bundles? And I said, no, just 4 cigars. And he goes, oh yeah, no problem. Grab them 4. So I felt like I'd arrived because now I was able to get some Lanceros. Yeah.
I actually went to the launch event in Vegas. So I've known Michael Fry forever. I went to the launch event when they opened the store in Vegas. And of course, that line of cigars debuted. And that was by anyone's margin, like irrespective of cigars, a spectacular party. It was on the rooftop overlooking the strip, and there was band, and Andy Garcia was playing, and on and on. It was just amazing. And Carlito was in full Carlito mode, and it was just a brilliant, brilliant event, and a beautiful store, and a great line of cigars. I actually remember writing my original review of that, and it's funny enough, I don't think maybe that story's in the book. I don't think it is, though.
Okay.
Which is funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, great stick, great shop. Fries are lovely family, and Carlito loves spreading the love. So good for you guys.
Yeah, we love spending time there. It's sad that in October it's at least in this iteration coming to an end.
Yeah.
But hopefully it will, make a reappearance somewhere else down the line, I hope.
Totally.
One hopes.
Yeah. All right, Sig. Let's get back to this
JP.
book. We'll see if we can get a shot of it up on the screen here so people can see this beautiful book. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Well, if not, I have one nearby. How handy is that, audience? Hold on here.
While you're
it's hard. Well, it's backwards.
Hey.
First of all. So, but the problem is it's a blind emboss, so it's hard to see the name on the screen. But hold on here. We'll do this.
Awesome. How's that for Unboxed Live, ladies and gentlemen?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Very
so
cool.
Yes. So
All
there
right.
you go.
So
that's the money shot right there.
There you go.
We'll get it good.
That's great.
And it's big. And we're going to come to this in a second, but see how there are kind of three different parts. You can actually see it from the side. We're going to talk about that. So there you go.
Well, let's start.
I'm not going to go through all 416 pages. So that's all you guys get.
All right. What's been the most memorable part of the journey of this book? So if you can pinpoint any one thing or even multiple things, what's been the most memorable part of this journey?
Sure. Obviously, I'm not a props comic because I'm having trouble with this. There we go. Well, the book really starts with the Playboy Book of Cigars. Will you indulge me? Will you allow me to tell you a tale? Be a storyteller, so to speak?
Yeah.
When I did the Playboy Book of Cigars, there were a lot of people involved in that project. First of all, Janelle Rosenfeld from Altadas, who's no longer at Altadas, was involved. Hugh Hefner personally edited that book. Leopold Freilich, who was the editor of all the Playboy books, worked on that book. So there were a lot of people involved in it. And there were certain things I could write about, and there's certain things I couldn't. And it was very, obviously, heavily Playboy branded. And I loved the book, but I felt hamstrung by some of the limitations that were involved. And then I did the Impossible Collection of Cigars. Apologies. I'm just not going to have a voice left if I don't keep on drinking.
No problem.
And the Impossible Collection of Cigars was spectacular and really a global phenomenon, and is now in its insert here 7th, 8th, 9th printing. Really, really phenomenal. But again, Prosper Azuline, co-founder of Azuline Publishing, which makes inarguably some of the most beautiful books ever in the history of ever. Prosper was very involved in that project as well. When I did the Fuente books, of which there are two, Carlito, Ciro, Cynthia, and again, Prosper Azuline were all involved. And I think when I was working on the Fuente books, I kind of arrived at the idea that I've always wanted to do a second edition of the Playboy book because it was outdated. But then what it really came down to is I wanted to do a book that was kind of independent of everybody else. And that's what brought us to this book, Cigars of Biography. And I've done a number of those books, actually all of them except the Impossible Collection, with Ian Spanier, the photographer. And I really want to continue working with Ian. We had just done back-to-back books for Fuente and Azuline. And I really liked the way we were working together. We had a lot of unspoken language, and the art director, who's actually a partner in our company, Liliana Gia, we were all very in sync of what this book would kind of look like and feel like. The reason you see those three sections is it's really three books in one. And I don't mean that in any sort of facetiousness whatsoever. It is well, first of all, it's 416 pages long. There are like 200 photos in it, and it's 107,000 words. To put that into context for people who aren't in the publishing business, a standard contemporary novel is 80 to 100,000 words. This is more than that. So the history, the first section of the book reads and is de facto a history book. I mean, that's what it is. And that's the largest chunk of the writing. And it's like 60,000 words, give or take. Then there's a portfolio, a monograph of all of Ian's work, mixed in with some vintage images and some vintage archival pieces that we put out through. But it's literally a portfolio of Ian's photography shot over the course of 16 and a half years in Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Honduras, Mexico, Ybor City, New York, Los Angeles, London, Connecticut River Valley. I mean, we shot this book everywhere over a long period of time. And then the back of the book really reflects kind of what we would say in magazines is the service-oriented part of an article or a magazine, or in this case, a book, where it's a lot of the questions people often ask me on Instagram about aging, about brands, about this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of put that all together. At one point in time, instead of having the cigar case inspired, so there's a cigar case, please. So there's a cigar case that we did in conjunction with it. So they're all blind embossed, which really doesn't do well, but it's the same logo as on my hat. So Manny Arate did these cases for us. They're beautiful. But this is what inspired the book, the design, the outside design of the book was a cigar case. Yeah. Before it was that, we were thinking about a conventional book case, slip case. And the conventional one was actually going to have 3 separate volumes in it. It was going to have the history book as a standalone, Ian's work and the archival pieces as a standalone, and then the back third of the book, which is just kind of it's more advanced than a Cigar 101 book, but it covers things that perhaps other people have covered just in my particular way. And that's it. So the book is very, very specific. So I think as soon as we were done with the play, to answer your question not so succinctly, as soon as we were done with the Playboy Book of Cigars, I always had in the back of my mind that we would do a second edition. This is far more than that, but it is de facto that.
Yeah.
How's that?
Very cool. What was it like working with award-winning photographer Ian Spanier? I know you've worked with him for, I think, across all of your cigar books, correct?
All except the, I think he has one image that Azuline licensed for the Impossible Collection of Cigars, but that was all Azuline design and Azuline images. So I didn't really design. I didn't work on the design of that book as I did the others. Ian's great. He's a dear friend. We've worked together on and off now 17 years, something like that. It's been a very long collaboration. Ian is a rare find. So in the old days of photography, you would find someone like an Irving Penn who could shoot a still life, do a fashion shoot, and do portraits. I don't think he did any landscapes. He might have. And if there are photo fans out there, they'll let me know. But Ian is a rare bird in that he shot all the landscapes. He shoots all the portraits. I mean, primarily he's a portrait photographer. So instead of like having cigar bands or logos representing the brands, we have portraits of all the cigar makers.
Yeah.
And so you have somebody who's shooting the landscape, shooting the portraits, shooting the action in the factories, and shooting actually still lives, like studio still lives.
Yeah.
That is just an insane combination of talent and skills. Ian is obsessed about light and lighting. He's a very technical photographer, which allows him to kind of traverse all these different disciplines. What's amazing about all that is landscape, of course, you have no control over the light, but yet he always seems to find a way. There is, and there has never been, a photographic portfolio akin to this one covering the cigar industry for as long as it has. Yeah. And that is something that's a real testament to what this book is all about, and really Ian's work and dedication to the world of cigars. I mean, it's amazing. Just nobody else has ever. It's just shy of 20 years, but 17 years photographed all the. There it is.
There
so
it
that's
is.
much better than me holding it up and trying to unpack it.
Yeah, and you can also see the embossed cigars.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
it's there. Anyway, so I think that working with Ian is always a dream. I mean, he's a photographer, so that means he's a prima donna, and I hope he's watching and hearing that. But I love him, and he's a dear friend, and he also knows that. So there you go. Yeah, it's great.
Awesome.
Can I bring out Mr. Cigar for just 1 second?
Yeah, of course.
Hold on. So when anything went in the cigar boom during the 90s cigar booms, and one of my favorite things that we created was Mr. Smoke. and it was funny. I actually forgot all about him. And I went into Tobacconist or Greenwich, and they have like they have one. And I'm like, oh my God, does it speak? And he's like, it doesn't anymore. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but it says like 10 different things. Hold on. Hurry up and smoke me. That's what he just said then. Anyway, it's one of my favorite little keepsakes over the years. It was in a box in the basement. And when I saw Mike's, I pulled mine out. So
that's awesome.
Just very proud of Mr.
How
Smoke.
old is that?
Yeah,
thing?
how old is it?
It actually has a date on here. Hold on. 96.
Oh my gosh.
Coming up on.
I'm telling you, anything went in the cigar boom. Yeah, I had obviously a plush, like anything you could dream up that was cigar related during the cigar boom. And you guys talked about Carlito. I don't know if you can see, I guess it's over my right shoulder, but camera left, are my two Carlito bobbleheads.
Back in the corner there,
Yeah. Carlito's always watching.
He's
omnipresent with me.
All right, so this is unrelated to the book.
Yes.
But look, as I've gotten to know about you, you are a lover of fine clothing, watches. You are a Michelin star hunter. You love great food, great drink. You're a wine connoisseur. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what's been your journey throughout the years of finding, hobbies, things that you love, and kind of going down those rabbit holes as well? Because we obviously know about your background in cigars, but I always want to know a little bit more about the person.
Sure. Happy to share. By the way, that was one of the first things, funny enough, I know we're not allowed to talk about it, but JP and I were at a photo shoot, and the first thing we talked about, funny enough, wasn't cigars or even the reason we were there. We were talking about our watches.
Yep.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Today I'm wearing this, which I love. It's a GP Laureato. I love there we go. There's camera.
Beautiful.
My wrist doesn't really go that way. Yeah, it's a great watch. Anyway, my approach to all these things, whether I was at Playboy or Esquire or doing other media or my own magazines or the books, and this book has a lot of that in there as far as pairings, but not just with wine and spirits, with coffee and tea, what goes. So you can only approach this kind of niche subject one of two ways. You either put it in a bubble and you're like, it's all cigars all the time. And that's all it is. Or all watches, or all food, or all wine, whatever, it doesn't matter. Or you can take a much bigger, broader polymath approach and say, there is a lifestyle that I choose to live. And if you work within the confines of what you can afford to do, and you kind of really approach every one of these topics, whether it's cigars, whether it's wine, whether it's cognac, whether it's fine timepieces, watches, it's just a very polymath approach that there's a total lifestyle that encompasses all of these things. For some guys, it's watches and cigars. For other guys, it's whiskey and sartorial matters, and on and on and on. So I think you kind of choose this. Now, I've met guys in cigar clubs and herfs, which isn't a term anyone really uses anymore, and on and on and on, where they don't want to talk about anything else. They don't want to talk about watches. They only want it's all cigars, and that's good for them. That has never been my personal philosophy ever. And if you look back at older interviews of me, I've kind of espoused the same thing over and over again. There is an all-encompassing lifestyle. and you take certain elements. Somebody may not be a whiskey guy, may not be a watch guy, may not be a bespoke suit guy, and that's fine.
Mhm.
But if you decide what your cars certainly work into all this.
Yeah.
So you take the elements that you think speak to you, that you want to do a deep dive into, that you're super passionate about, and you know you will continue to want to endlessly learn. Benji Menendez, obviously, cigar legend, one of my favorite human beings. I got to actually launch the Benji Partagas when I was at General. Got to work with him. And he's like, the minute you stop learning, or the minute you're not open to learning, is when you're basically dead in the water.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you pick from these columns, like you and I also talked about. You and your brother are Michelin star chasers as well. And that's not for everyone, because not everyone, quite honestly, wants to sit through a 2 or 3 hour meal. I totally get that. But so you kind of look at this roster of things, but some of them are actually material things. Some of them are experiential. I would put wine, cognac, and cigars as both, quite honestly, because when you're done with the cigar or your Casa Fuentes, it'll be over.
Yeah.
Much like this interview, I hope is wrapping soon. No, it's but so you take these things, you take these tangible things, you take these experiential things, you say that's for me, and you build your life around it. And that's it. It's not, I mean, it's not a grand philosophy. I mean, this isn't Descartes, for God's sakes, but I mean, you know, that's just and that's always been my approach. Even when we were doing Smoke Magazine, and Smoke is now coming up on, we passed it, actually. It's not around anymore. So Smoke would have been 30 years old last year, which is amazing. So even in Smoke, it was a wide, all-encompassing, you know, general interest men's magazine. What I always loved about Playboy in my conversations with Hef would say, if you take away the nudes, Playboy was actually a literary magazine. And you would think about some of the greatest writers of the 20th century worked for Hef.
Yeah,
so that's amazing.
Yep.
If you took the cigars out of Smoke, you would have easily had just a great men's lifestyle, very current of that generation magazine.
Yeah.
And then you put the cigars in, it adds another layer, and it kind of ties everything together. But that's really kind of it.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. I always like
It's always going to freak me out when you guys zoom in. I'm just like, that is so much of me, more than even my mother would want to see.
zooming in on Sig over and over and over again. No, you know, I always like to ask that question because Nate and I very much are sartorialists. We love a good libation, a nice brown drink, and otherwise the clear liquids. We you know, we kind of love everything it comes with, essentially the lifestyle of a cigar smoker. And so I always like to ask other people what their thoughts are on it and kind of what, you know, kind of rounds that all out, right? Because all of those things are things that I'm interested in and love having conversations about. And so it's always nice to get somebody else's perspective on those things.
I couldn't.
I'm sorry, Nate. I totally interrupted you. I apologize.
No, you're all good. One of the things that I was thinking as you were talking about constantly learning and always being in the pursuit of learning, I also feel that way about the concept of creating new and interesting and unique art. And in every facet, you know, a great cigar, paired with a cocktail, you know, a great conversation, you're creating new and interesting art. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when you're constantly in the pursuit of creating art, no matter what you do, that also is something that really keeps you vital. And I think it keeps your brain sharp, just like learning. I think when we stop doing both of those things, that's when, like you said, that's when we're dead.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, it's really the art of connoisseurship. And that's what we're talking about. And that seems very intimidating or very highfalutin to some people, but, you know, it's not, because it could, like, I've known, if you could hand down, which I can't, you would see I have a tray full of pens. Some of them are very expensive pens. Some of them are just cool pens that I love that are not expensive at all. When you say connoisseurship, I think people get very intimidated, or they feel like, oh, this is, you know, a rich guy's, you know, hobby or something. That's exactly the opposite. I'll still go into a cigar shop and say, what's the best $8 cigar you have. Now, the scary part is I remember when a Davidoff Special R was $8.50 in California with their taxes. So that's crazy. But it doesn't have to be expensive to be good. And if you really listen to, especially a lot of wine reviewers, over and over again, they convey that message. It doesn't have to be expensive to be good. But connoisseurship and the polymath approach to all these things and the learning and that we're talking about, or an appreciation of craft, which is really what all of this is about, an appreciation of craft.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is not intimidating. It's just the level of appreciation you want to explore personally and convey to others. Obviously, my appreciation for all these things has led to writing 23 books. That's a lot of conveying and a lot of passion. And that's not for everyone either. Ian, we'll go back to Ian for a second. He's like, I don't know why you wrote so many words in this book. You know, everybody's just going to look at my photos and say, that was amazing.
They're beautiful photos, by the way. They're gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, Ian's a super talented cat. There's no two ways about that. So, and there may be, but I keep on saying it in some of the other conversations I've had with folks about the book. If you want to do a super, 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 super deep dive into cigars, one that does not solely genuflex and bow to the altar of Cuba and Habanos. That's one of the other things that makes this book very special. This book talks about Jamaican, Puerto Rican, Nicaraguan, Honduran, Dominican, obviously, cigars, Ecuadorian tobacco, Cameroon tobacco. This is it's identical to what I just explained about my approach to kind of lifestyle in general. It is a very polymath approach to cigars. This is not, we've all read 1,000 books that are exclusively only about Havana and Cuba. And there's no two ways about it. At one point in time, Cuba was the alpha and omega of cigars. Fair enough. But at this juncture, it is undisputably and always will be alpha, but it is not omega. That is for the Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, and all the other nations, and multi-origin blends as opposed to puros. And that is something this book espouses. It extols, actually, that we are living in the greatest period of cigars ever. I smoked a cigar, I can't name it, but it had Cuban filler, legit, but it had a Nicaraguan binder and wrapper. And it's not sold in this country for obvious reasons, and they didn't disclose where the filler was from because it was just going to get too messy and complicated. But here's even a multi-origin blend that has Cuban filler in it. You know, yes, you can have, people always want to draw the parallels to wine and cigars, and it's not entirely accurate. What's more accurate, to be honest with you, are either whiskeys, blended or single malt, or cognacs, because they are all blended in a certain way. And it's really maintaining a flavor profile. It's maintaining that continuity, and it's taking the best of everything you have access to create something spectacular. To Nate's point, you know, really going after something great and the pairing and creating something spectacular. That is something I've never known another cigar book to do. And I'm saying this one does. I'm not saying it's the only one that ever will do it, but it's the best of my knowledge. It doesn't focus on a single brand like my Fuente books do. And it doesn't focus on Cuba, which is a single country. This is a book that is for all cigar lovers and lovers of all cigars. And that's it.
That's awesome, man.
That's awesome.
Okay, so
it seemed like a lot. I don't know. Was I too?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
So let's throw the photo of the book up there again. I want people to be able to see this thing because it is visually stunning.
Weighty, 10 pounds or 9 pounds, something like that.
So it also doubles as a dumbbell. Look at that.
Yeah, it does.
So if there is any one thing or a multitude of things that the reader of this book will get. What do you want the overall message of this book to be for whether you are a cigar connoisseur or you are just a lover of books?
Right. Well, I mean, I think you just said it. I don't really have to answer the question. I mean, I wanted as much of an all-encompassing book as possible.
Mhm.
So there's a chapter on cigar-inspired watches. Some people know about these things. Some people don't. I love that portrait of Avo. It's
That's
one of my
beautiful.
favorite. So I miss Avo. I met Avo for the first time in 1992 when I was managing the Davidoff store. Back then, Davidoff didn't have a West Coast office, and they didn't have a West Coast sales rep. So part of my job was I had to drive Avo from different shops to different shops in Southern California, from San Diego all the way up to Santa Barbara, and we would make all these stops. So I really spent an incredible amount of time with Avo. I miss him. I love him. He was the gentlest soul. He was just a great guy, and very much influenced my philosophy of life. He loved his Brioni suits. He loved his hats. He loved his cigars. He loved the ladies. He was a guy. He was just a phenomenal human being. But that's what I mean about portraits. Other than Cigar Aficionado covers, what continuous photographic record do we have of cigar people with this level of portraiture? And I would submit none.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah,
it is great.
I honestly, I invite anybody who is interested in cigars, is a cigar aficionado, is just a lover of
Hold on that
fantastic book.
photo for 1 second. So that is in Hunters and Frankow, and that is the original H. Upman factory safe that is in their conference room.
Sure, you can see their logo is right there on the door, right?
Yeah, and above as well, it's an old label or marketing thing. Yeah, it was I just love it's stunning.
And where does
absolutely stunning piece?
Where does that safe now live? You mentioned
so Hunters and Frankow used to own H. Upman, the brand, and it was in the H. Upman factory. And when they somehow it was ferried from Cuba to London, and it resides there now in their corporate headquarters. Yeah,
God,
stunning,
that's
gorgeous,
so cool, man.
So like real history, an embodiment of real, Cuban history right there.
Yeah,
beautiful craftsmanship. The funny thing is, it was probably made, not probably, it was definitely made in Germany or somewhere in Europe, right? It was sent to Cuba only to be sent back to Europe, which is kind of funny.
Of course. It's on a really long loan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was a very long loan. Exactly. I'm sorry, I totally interrupted, but I was excited by this photo. But this is also a great example of Ian's, versatility. You had the portrait of Avo, which Ian took, and then he took this. And those are not the same thing at all. It's a totally different discipline.
No, his versatility in photography is something to behold. It's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
No, the only thing I wanted to get at is I've had an opportunity to skim through the pages of this book, and again, it's visually stunning.
Yeah.
Like even if you aren't an avid reader, picking this thing up and just flipping through the photography is something else. So and again, this is purely me saying this. I think it's beautiful. I think it's an incredible book.
Thank you.
I think you've done a great job with this. Bravo, for the work that you all put into this. But I'm looking forward to actually getting a copy of the book myself and being able to really dig into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. But we don't want to take any more of your time. We really appreciate you taking this time with us.
You guys are my day. It's whatever you guys want. I'm totally good with it. Yeah, that's a good place to end on, I suppose. And I really appreciate you guys letting me tell some stories and some tales and talk about the book. I really do. Am I supposed to say I use your I do. I have like packs, like hidden. I don't know what's done at the end of the show, but I'm a fan of you guys. So, and you're in the book. The company's in the book. So,
awesome.
A couple different ways. Yeah.
Just so you know, to take good care of you when it comes to Boveda. So
there you go. There you go. Well, I really appreciate you guys and the time you've given me, and hopefully people learned a little something. And if they didn't, well, then they've squandered 45 minutes of their life, but they'll won't get back. But they'll move on from this.
the one, the only Aaron Sigmond. Thank you for your time. We really
Thanks,
appreciate
guys.
it. Congratulations again on the book,
Thank
Cigars of Biography. Very awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
And
Really.
thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks,
We
guys.
appreciate it. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and we will
Yes.
see you all soon. Thank you so much. Cheers, y'all.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.
Ciao.